Hi y'all. It's a little warm today. It's been a little warm for a little while at this point and very humid, like sweating in shade. So I'm going to show you a new bed I created this past weekend while I could, morning and evening. And then I'm going to do a little work around the garden this evening when the sun kind of goes behind the trees and it cools off a little bit. There's some things I need to cut back. There's some trees that I need to cut back, and I've talked to you about them this spring and we'll go over them a little more. And that's about it. So hopefully to get some things done because I'm behind from all the rain. I did start pulling weeds yesterday in the front flower bed, and I just kind of leave them here on the sidewalk to let them suffer. That's kind of my MO. I just want them to teach their offspring, future generations, that it's not a very good idea to grow in my garden. So, they're suffering a little bit. I didn't get very far yesterday before it got too dark. It's just too hot to work when the sun's out these days. So let's go to the back where the sun is already down a little bit and I can show you the new bed I created. And we'll talk a little bit about what's going to go in there. Yes, the shade. So behind me here, I was talking about this new bed I was going to create in the last video. After that video ended, I came out here and staked everything. I took a short clip of that. And then the next morning, started moving wood chips. And I put down cardboard first. So I took a few pictures I'll show you of the cardboard I put down. I've been saving my cardboard all spring, and I was able to cover most of this bed. Here in Ohio, or areas where you have cool season grasses, they can often just have wood chips put directly on top of them if you do a thick enough layer. So I used cardboard, all the cardboard that I had, and then the rest I just piled some heavier wood chips on it. And typically you avoid like planting in those for a few months until the grass dies down. If you're in climates where there are warm season grasses, so like Bermuda grass, this method doesn't work so well because the grass is so aggressive. But it works well here. I've done it for pretty much all of these beds in the backyard, including this one here, which I've had very little weed and grass pop through since I piled all those wood chips on. And that's been an entire year ago now, if not longer. I think I did that in the spring. Time's running together. Anyway, so I put down cardboard, and then I put down 3 half-inch lines of drip irrigation, so just solid. I will tap into that for shrubs because this is also going to be a mostly shrub planting with maybe some drought tolerant perennials, which is the same thing I did behind the back of the fence here for the pool area. So this is going to be more area to trial some additional shrubs. Now, I'm going to say this now, and you can hold me accountable later. It's probably not going to be, but this is going to be one of my last big garden beds on this property, I think, because it's getting too much for me to take care of by myself. So the tractor's super handy to move wood chips around and stuff, but it's just a lot to get caught up on. And I realized that last year, but I wanted to finish this project this year. So that's why I plant a lot of shrubs, because they don't need a whole lot of maintenance typically once you get them planted. So let's talk a little bit about what may go in here. So a lot of these things I planted in the fall. Well, all of these things I planted in the fall. I've not planted anything else here. And I kind of started the beginnings of this bed. So here you can see kind of the pathway that I was looking for. Now I haven't done this bed as far as edging it yet completely, but the pathway is roughly going to be 8 foot for both of these. This is going to come in a little more and be, more rounded and appropriate. This is where I just put wood chips down last year without any cardboard, and you can see how well that did. But over here, there's going to be more shrubs. So this is a Parkland pillar birch here, which stays really skinny and nice. We have a Jetstream hydrangea, a fiber optics button bush, which creates these really, really cool, look, they got pollinators on them now. Flowers and seed heads here that are neat to see in the summer. We have a maple here. I don't remember what variety this is. 𝗩𝗂𝗦, I believe. It's a smaller maple. Yeah, 𝗩𝗂𝗦 maple. And then there is a Arctic leaf willow down here. I think it may be called a blue leaf willow. Really beautiful texture though. And then down here we have a samurai sword, Japanese maple from 𝗓𝗏𝗏𝗧𝗏 tree program that I planted last fall as well. So I need to come through and remove all these tags and stuff. So in the middle of this bed, if you've been following for long enough, you know there was a very old diseased crabapple that I cut down last summer, fall. So the stumps left over. I bought a stump grinder attachment for my edger that I use to edge this bed with. I'm going to try and cut this down to the ground as far as I can and burn it out. So I've got a burn barrel here trying to burn that stump out. And if burning's unsuccessful, or if I can at least get it partially burned, then I'm going to try and ground the stump out. But I at least got most of the bed ready to be planted in. So it's not super pretty right now, but that's going to be a project at a later time that's just going to take some time. The edger I have works really wonderfully. I did a video on that about 2 years ago, year and a half ago, and it still gets watched all the time, but it's one of those that you can rent at your local tool rental supply place. Works really good at creating new beds. So I've got about 3 lines of irrigation, one in the center that was run on these plants last year, one on this back end and one on the front end, and then I'll come off of that with 1/4 inch drip irrigation to the individual shrubs as I need it, so I'm not watering the whole area and watering weeds. Water the plants, not the weeds. I'm going to come through and trench a small underground drip irrigation line to water the swing set bed with all of the hydrangeas I have over here that I'm trialing that are looking really good. These are Pop Star, and they came back a wonderful blue this year. There's a little bit more purple. Last year they were very, very bright blue, so you can see they're acclimating to my soil and becoming a little more pink. This one's even got more tinges of purple to pink on it than the others, but looking good over here. But that's about it. I got that done Saturday and Sunday morning and evening, which was really nice to be able to get that completed on a weekend so I could tackle some like smaller jobs during the week. And that's just how this area is going to go. I really want to do a formal boxwood alternative rose garden back here somewhere, or boxwood hydrangea garden. And when I say alternative, I'm looking primarily probably inkberry hollies, and then like the squares or the circles with like a planter in the center of it that looks really nice. I don't know where I'm going to put that yet. That is something I want to do. I just got to figure out how to situate it. And I don't know if it's going to be roses or hydrangeas yet, but I'm probably going to use inkberry hollies because in our county here in Ohio, we have both boxwood moth and boxwood blight, which not good, no bueno. And so I just want to stop using boxwoods to the extent I can. There's not a great alternative, but inkberry hollies seem to be like the closest to a good replacement for those, and they've performed pretty well for me in my soil so far. So Previous Winters has one called Gem Box, which is closer, has smaller leaves, closer to maybe a boxwood. And there's one called Strong Box, which has a little bigger leaf. So maybe some Gem Box or something somewhere. I don't know, still thinking about it, but I'm not in any particular hurry to fill this bed space up. I do have some shrubs that I have already that are waiting to kind of go into this space, and I got it created a little later than I wanted to, but I'm going to hold off on that until I get drip irrigation hooked up, and then I can plant them and make sure they're getting water, because I don't want to put them in the ground and then just have another chore of something to water when they're getting sprinkler water and are happy most of the day in the cut flower garden. All right, I brought out the big boy loppers. Behind me here, let's turn the camera around. So this is a Starway to Heaven styrax, which I planted last year. I picked up at Cultivate in Columbus, and winter was not fair to any of the styrax in my garden. This one died to the ground, and then another one that I have appears to be completely dead. It had no growth on it. This one, however, is looking really great. It started blooming or budding up and shooting growth from the bottom of it. So I'm just going to use this as like a low branched shrub tree, and it's going to be glorious. So I'm going to cut back the main stem, which is dead, which I said I was going to do in a video about a month ago. I was going to give it time, and it has really taken off since it got hot. So it's going to look great and fill the space very nicely. That means I can kind of remove these stakes because all the growth is going to be lower to the ground and much more sturdy. So we're just going to tackle that quick little project. So if you ever need to do something like this to a tree, it's okay. Like this growth is completely dead. You can see how brittle it is. It just breaks right off. Nothing green inside of it at all dead wood. So I'm going to pull this center stake out that came with the tree because it's not needed anymore. And then I'm going to find where this trunk goes down as far as I can. You can see the growth down here shooting way down here at the bottom. And I'm going to cut maybe a couple inches above that. So all the growth is pretty low and some underneath the ground. So it'll be okay. But it's going to be beautiful. And hopefully I'll even get some blooms off of it. So we know this has a really good root system and it's root hardy here. But this winter here in Ohio was just really, really rough on a lot of plants. And there we go. That is it. Ta-da! Much beautiful now. And you won't even be able to tell. Now the stem right here also, there's not much green either. So that'll heal over and scab over nicely. And then we'll have a low branched Starway to Heaven Styrex here. And hopefully, since it's lasted a whole winter in the garden and all this growth is new and very vigorous, it will survive better this winter in the garden. But this is why we test and trial things out. This is also not intended to be a hydrangea trials video, but several more blooms coming on a lot of the macrophylla. So I'll try and get a video shot this weekend and show you what is blooming and what is still kind of struggling. And here we have the red bud that I got from Browns and I had planted in 2023 along with a lot of these other trees here. We've had serious storms and winds this spring, and so I came through earlier because I think I showed you on video a couple months ago. A lot of the tinier branches on this did not leaf out, and so I went through and cut a bunch of branches off. But we had a very bad windstorm come through a while back and broke this branch, split it, and then the other day another storm came through and tore what was the rest of it. It's still green down here up, and so I'm going to come down and cut this back to about here and just clean this little tree up a little bit so it looks not quite so bad. I need to sharpen these pruners. They've seen better days, but they're pretty good. All right, left a little bit of a gap here, which I don't love, but it'll grow in. It's put on lots of new branches this season, which hopefully, now that it's had an entire year and a half in the ground, will be a little hardier this winter. I'm hoping for an easier winter this winter because you can see how many little branches I had to cut off all over, cut out a bunch of crossing stuff as well, hoping that it'll thicken up some this year. And a lot of these trees have that I planted. Some are getting really thick this year. This is my Skinny Jeans oak, which I really love. Gets a little wider than Kindred Spirit, which I get asked about a lot down there. It's real skinny. I've done a video on all these trees last year, but maybe I need to do a tree video. I had someone asking for a tree video a while back too. But Kindred Spirit, I planted a hedge of these at the last garden and just really loved this variety because it only gets about 5 foot wide, maybe 6 foot wide. At maturity, produces some acorns. But because it's so skinny, they kind of just fall directly below the tree. Don't make a huge mess, but it's a beautiful structure in the garden. And then it turns a glorious yellow color in fall. So now I have a secret for you. There's some new shrubs being released at Cultivate by lots of companies. One of those is not supposed to be out yet from First Editions, and it's the new panicle hydrangea by First Editions called Spring Sizzle. So this is what it looks like. Gorgeous. Our Home Depot have them out before they're announced, and Jay from Jay's Garden Journal found one in her location in North Carolina too. So if you want to be there early, you can stop by your Home Depot and see if they have them. Our Home Depot had them also 50% off, so I paid like $13, $14 for this very nice looking 1 gallon shrub here. And I'm going to replace, probably this weekend, after I can get some irrigation to it, replace one of the other styracs that I had that did not make it with this one along the rose wall, the 𝗩𝗟𝗘𝗧𝗦 rose wall. So at the front of it, spring sizzle is an improvement over other paniculatas for the south, or really anywhere that has really hot, humid summers. So it's supposed to retain or actually turn pink. So in southern climates, if any of y'all live in southern climates, I know some of y'all do, paniculatas don't always turn pink because of the humidity and heat. They'll just go from like white to brown. And spring sizzle is supposed to solve those issues. So check it out if you can find it at your Home Depot, or look for it in a couple weeks after Cultivate. They'll probably be at Cultivate, and I'll be showing them off there. Maybe there'll even be some in bloom that they got started in the garden center earlier. I expect they will, because, you know, why bring hydrangeas to a show if you can't show their beautiful blooms? But looks like it has really beautiful dark foliage, and First Editions is really nice about just having like, this is a big hydrangea for a 1 gallon can. So that's an exciting secret. Don't tell anybody. And for anyone interested in the plant tag, here it is. So roughly 4 to 6 foot tall, 4 to 5 foot wide, zones 3 through 8, full sun to part shade, and look at those dark pink blooms. So it says it's one of the earliest blooming panicle hydrangeas with unforgettable blooms and color. White flowers quickly transform to deep red even in warm regions, and it's a medium-sized panicle that is perfect for hedges and foundations. So if you see it out there, grab it. And this is actually a 2 gallon, not a 1 gallon, but still a really nice size for, I guess it was about $15. Hi, it's me again. It's only been like 20 minutes since I last checked in with you. And that's because my crippling anxiety tells me I have too much to do in this garden to be sitting around waiting for the sun to set anymore. So we're going to cut back a few things. I'm going to work on, there's still weeds to be pulled in this bed. Since I work a full-time job, it's about tackling tiny projects at a time in the evenings during summer. And so I'm going to cut back a few things and pull some weeds along the way. I rarely get all the weeds the first time I go through. I call it weed blindness, so I have to go back through and find them again later as I'm walking around from different angles. But we're going to work on the catmints, including the chartreuse on the loose that I showed you in the last video. That's looking a little I have some visitors coming from during Cultivate, and I want the garden to look nice. So hopefully if I cut them now, in 2 weeks, they will have perked back up and put on some new growth. So I'm going to get started on that right now. So I feel like last year my perennials looked better for a longer period of time because they had just been planted in the spring and they were a little behind. But this year, definitely need to cut back. So let's move around to some other parts of the garden. A lot of the other stuff here is still looking pretty good. It's mostly the catmints and the salvias, and maybe some of the veronicas are still pretty good, but we might cut some of them back too, depending on how they look. So this area is going to look a little rough, I think, because there are a lot of salvias and catmints here. So maybe better design planning on my part wouldn't have led to this, but it's a pretty combination when it's all in bloom. But it'll look good in a couple weeks. I will maybe come through with some fertilizer, and I know you typically don't need to fertilize salvias or catmints, but to improve the second flush, I think I'm going to do that. All right, my preferred method of cutting back perennials and lots of things is to just use head shears. But I don't really want to make a mess on my mulch that I literally just done a month ago. So hand cutting it is, I can control it a little better, I can get a little closer. Don't have to worry about cutting any drip irrigation, but there's not drip irrigation here. I tend not to put drip irrigation around perennials that don't love drip irrigation and can survive the heat. One, so I'm not wasting water, and one, and two, so the plants are happier. So we're just going to continue. Now you can also cut these back by 1/3, which is what a lot of people do. Just kind of trim them down a little bit. I don't think I trimmed these up in the spring before they started pushing growth. And I would just like all new flushes of growth. So just don't cut them back and they'll be fine. All right, behind me here is some yarrow that is flopping. Yarrow can flop if maybe it's got too much nutrition, or in our case this year, it received entirely too much water and rain. It has rained so much in June. I'll see if I can pull some statistics or something, I don't know. But this is the only yarrow in my garden that's flopping. There may be a little bit of drip irrigation here because this yarrow was tucked in after I put in drip irrigation. The yarrow in the rest of the garden does not have drip irrigation. But again, I don't think it's the drip irrigation. We've just received entirely too much rain. Now, there's so many methods of tying up perennials and shrubs, including like cages that you can put them in where there's an outside border. I don't like to see stakes in the garden. So I'm going to try and make this as less visible as possible. Now, it's probably not going to be entirely pretty because the yarrow's flopped long enough now that it's almost trying to correct itself and grow straight up again. So it might be very ugly, but there's only like 3 plants here, I think. So I'm going to take a single stake in the middle. I've got some bundle twine and I'm going to gather the stems and tie twine around it with the stake in the center, and hopefully that makes it look okay. And then the stake in the center will at least provide some support if it's windy. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but we shall begin. All right, is it perfect? No. Would it have been better for me to have done this like a week or so ago? Yes. Was I here a week ago? No. So this is as good as it's gonna get. I wish the blooms were a little more upright and it wouldn't look so fake right now, but actually with all the other stuff around it, you wouldn't really know from like the sidewalk or the other side of the bed because it's kind of in the middle here. So it looks a little cramped and unnatural in a bunch, but if I do it too loose, then I got to put the string way higher up on the plant, and then it just does look funny and it's more visible. So down there at the bottom, you can hardly see. And I tried to hammer the stake in far enough where it's not super visible unless you're looking for it. These are fiberglass garden stakes. I prefer them. A lot of the ones that you'll find at the garden center or your big box store are hollow on the inside and they just bend and break really easily. So I will link them below. I get them from Amazon and that comes like in a bundle of 20 or so. They're a little more expensive, but they're almost impossible to break and they just last season after season. I use them a lot, primarily to lay out garden beds before I dig the edges for them. But I also use them in the vegetable garden for peppers and then in random staking things like I just had to do in the garden. All right, I am super sticky, but I'm gonna stick through it and finish cutting back all of these salvias here because they're all the same variety type and they all need to be cut back. And then I have some more of them there. And then I'm probably gonna cut the chartreuse on the loose over here in this garden bed. This looks much better in this garden bed than it did over there. A lot less browning. Not sure why, but it is what it is. So look, that yarrow is perfect. See, this is peach sky. It stands up really well. And I'm gonna call it a night, I think. I will be glad to have gotten some of this done so it can start recovering. I'll probably come out and spray these with a little bit of fertilizer though, just so they can maybe perk up and put on some more growth over the next couple weeks. especially just in time for like the big summer garden tour that I typically do at the end of July, beginning of August. I'm working on a huge labeling project for all the plants in the garden. And I will create an entire video on that because I'm super excited about it. And I've started labeling things. And if you have a keen eye, you may have noticed a few of them in this video and what I'm going to do. But it's going to be fun and will allow me to provide better content to you because I won't be going, I don't remember what the name of that plant is, because at this point I have so many plants in my garden, especially perennials and stuff, that it's becoming confusing to remember all of them. Thank y'all for watching along this evening, and remember, be a light. Take care. Bye.